It was the final day of school, buzzing with excitement for the long-awaited summer break. My friend, Sarah, and I had plans to celebrate at her house, like we always did. But little did I know, that day would be etched into my memory for entirely different reasons. Sarah's Uncle Tom was a frequent visitor to our school, always lurking around the gates waiting to pick Sarah up in his old, beat-up truck. We all knew Uncle Tom, a tall man with a perpetual shadow hanging over his face. But we never suspected the darkness that lay beneath his friendly facade. As the end-of-day bell rang, Sarah and I joined the throngs of students streaming out of the school gates. There he was, Uncle Tom, leaning against his truck as usual. "Hey girls, ready for some fun today?" He grinned, his eyes glinting in a way that made my skin crawl. Sarah seemed unfazed, accustomed to her uncle's quirks. "Come on, let's go," she urged, tugging at my sleeve. Reluctantly, I climbed into the back of the truck, the musty smell of old leather enveloping me. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah and I became accustomed to these rides with Uncle Tom. But something changed, subtly at first, then with an unmistakable chill. It was a sweltering afternoon when everything took a sinister turn. My parents were out of town, leaving me alone in our empty house. Sarah called, her voice trembling. "Hey, my uncle wants us to come over for a bit. He says he has a surprise for us." Alarm bells rang in my head, a primal instinct urging me to stay put. But Sarah was insistent, promising it would only be for a little while. Against my better judgment, I agreed. As Uncle Tom's truck pulled up outside my house, I felt a wave of unease wash over me. Sarah chattered excitedly beside me, oblivious to the knot of fear in my stomach. "We're here!" she exclaimed, jumping out of the truck. I hesitated, the air thick with an unspoken dread. "Are you coming?" Sarah called from the doorway, her voice tinged with impatience. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and stepped out into the oppressive heat. The front door creaked open, revealing Uncle Tom standing in the dimly lit hallway. "Girls, come in, come in!" he beckoned, his smile stretched unnaturally wide. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I followed Sarah inside. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound the soft hum of distant traffic. As we settled into the musty living room, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching us from the shadows. "So, I have a special surprise for you two," Uncle Tom announced, his voice dripping with false joviality. "Follow me." Sarah eagerly leapt to her feet, her trust in her uncle unwavering. But I remained rooted to the spot, a sinking feeling settling in the pit of my stomach. As we descended into the dimly lit basement, my heart pounded in my chest. The air grew colder, thick with the scent of damp earth. I glanced at Sarah, her eyes wide with excitement. Uncle Tom led us to a small, nondescript door tucked away in the corner. "Behind this door is the surprise," he grinned, producing an old, rusted key from his pocket. My heart hammered in my chest as Uncle Tom turned the key, the lock clicking open with a finality that sent shivers down my spine. The door creaked open, revealing a pitch-black room beyond. "Go on, girls, step inside," Uncle Tom urged, his voice a low, menacing growl. Sarah hesitated, her excitement giving way to unease. "I don't know about this, Uncle Tom," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. But before she could protest further, Uncle Tom shoved her forward, sending her stumbling into the darkness. The door slammed shut behind her with a resounding thud, leaving me alone with Uncle Tom's sinister grin. "Let her out!" I screamed, my voice echoing off the cold, damp walls. But Uncle Tom only chuckled, the sound sending chills down my spine. Now, don't be scared," he leered, advancing towards me with slow, deliberate steps. "You're next." Terrified, I backed away until my back hit the cold, unforgiving wall. "Please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "Let us go," but Uncle Tom's grin only widened, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Oh, we're just getting started," he whispered, his voice sending a wave of terror through me. As fear gripped me tighter than ever, I could feel the weight of his presence closing in. My heart pounded like a drumbeat in my chest as I searched desperately for an escape. "Please, Uncle Tom, this isn't funny," I stammered, my voice trembling with fear. But his sinister grin only grew wider, his eyes glinting with a darkness that sent shivers down my spine. "Oh, but it is," he chuckled, the sound chilling me to the bone. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee from this nightmare unfolding before my eyes. With a surge of adrenaline, I bolted past Uncle Tom, racing towards the door. Ignoring his shouts behind me, I burst out into the blinding sunlight, my heart racing with terror. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, the echoes of his laughter ringing in my ears. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone, dialing my parents' number with shaking fingers. "Mom, Dad, it's me," I gasped, my voice choked with tears. "Please help, I'm at Sarah's uncle's house." In a blur of panic and fear, I recounted the chilling events to my parents as I sprinted down the street. They reassured me, their voices filled with concern and urgency. Within minutes, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. My heart soared with relief as the police car screeched to a halt outside Uncle Tom's house. I collapsed to the ground, tears of gratitude streaming down my face as the officers rushed past me, storming into the house. Uncle Tom's sinister plans were swiftly foiled, and Sarah and I were rescued from the clutches of his darkness. It was the final day of school, a day buzzing with the promise of freedom and summer adventures. My friends and I, eager to celebrate, had made plans to catch a movie at the cinema downtown. Little did I know that this seemingly innocent outing would lead us down a path of terror. As the bell signaling the end of the school year rang out, excitement rippled through the air. My friend Alex, always the adventurous one, suggested we explore the area behind the cinema. "I heard there's a half-finished house back there," he grinned, his eyes sparkling with mischief. At first I hesitated. The idea of venturing into an abandoned building sent shivers down my spine. But Alex was persistent, rallying our friends with tales of hidden treasures and thrilling discoveries. "Come on, it'll be fun," he urged, slinging an arm around my shoulder. Reluctantly, I agreed, the thrill of the unknown beckoning me forward. As we made our way behind the cinema, the once bustling streets gave way to a desolate alleyway. The air was heavy with the scent of damp concrete and overgrown weeds. There it stood, looming in the distance like a specter from a forgotten past. The half-finished house, its skeletal frame silhouetted against the fading light of the day. Nerves fluttered in my stomach as we approached the decrepit building. Boards covered the windows and graffiti adorned the crumbling walls. "Here we are," Alex declared, his voice filled with excitement. "Let's see what mysteries await inside." My heart raced as we pushed open the creaking door, the hinges groaning in protest. The air inside was stale and musty, filled with the scent of decay. I hesitated on the threshold, my eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the boarded windows. Shadows danced along the walls, whispering secrets of forgotten days. "Are you coming? Or are you too scared?" Alex taunted, his bravado masking his own unease. Summoning all my courage, I stepped inside, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet. The air grew heavier with each step, the silence broken only by the echo of our footsteps. Suddenly, a noise shattered the stillness, a low, guttural growl that sent a shiver down my spine. My heart pounding in my chest, I turned to see a figure lurking in the shadows of a nearby room. Panic surged through me as the figure moved, its movements jerky and unnatural. "Guys, we need to get out of here," I whispered urgently, my voice barely above a terrified whimper. But Alex, ever the thrill-seeker, was undeterred. "Relax, it's probably just a stray animal," he said dismissively, taking a step closer to the mysterious figure. Before I could protest, a flicker of movement caught my eye. In the dim light, I saw the glint of eyes, filled with a primal hunger that sent a chill down my spine. Without a second thought, I turned and ran, my friends' shouts echoing behind me. The sound of footsteps pursued me, the darkness swallowing me whole as I raced towards the exit. Finally bursting out into the fading daylight, I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked back at the half-finished house, a place of terror and dread. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that harrowing experience haunted my dreams. My friends and I never spoke of that day again, the fear too raw and real. It wasn't until months later that we learned the truth. The mysterious figure in the house was not a ghost or a monster, but a homeless man seeking shelter from the harsh streets. Guilt gnawed at me as I realized our reckless curiosity had caused him fear and distress. From that day on, we vowed to never venture into abandoned places again, our hearts heavy with the weight of our actions. And so, the half-finished house behind the cinema remained untouched, a silent reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. It was the final day of school, a day tinged with the bittersweet feeling of endings and new beginnings. I was making my way to my last class of the day, science, my mind buzzing with excitement for the summer ahead. As I entered the classroom, I noticed him sitting in the back row. Dennis. He was a quiet guy, kept mostly to himself. I barely knew him, but something about the way he watched me made me uneasy. Over the course of a few weeks, Dennis started to make an effort to talk to me more. At first, I welcomed the friendly conversation, thinking nothing of it. But as he grew more persistent, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of my stomach. One day, after class, Dennis approached me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey, want to grab a bite to eat after school?" he asked casually, his voice tinged with an eagerness that set off alarm bells in my head. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to decline, to make an excuse and flee from his presence. But another part, the part that didn't want to seem rude or unfriendly, nodded hesitantly. And so, we went out for dinner. Just two classmates sharing a meal. But even as we talked and laughed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Dennis. After dinner, Dennis suggested we watch a movie at his place. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to decline. But then he flashed that charming smile, the one that seemed to hide 1,000 secrets, and I found myself agreeing. His house was tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the windows dark against the fading light of the day. As we settled in to watch the movie, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me like a heavy blanket. Midway through the movie, Dennis excused himself to go to the restroom. Minutes ticked by, turning into an eternity as I waited for him to return. Something wasn't right. Heart pounding, I made my way to the restroom, the hallway stretching out endlessly before me. The door to the restroom was closed, the light flickering ominously. "Dennis?" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty hallway. No response. With trembling hands, I pushed open the door, my heart lurching in my chest. The room was empty, the air heavy with silence. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me with a resounding thud, the lock clicking into place. Panic surged through me as I realized I was trapped. "Dennis, what's going on?" I cried out, pounding on the door with all my strength. But there was no answer, only the muffled sound of his footsteps retreating down the hallway. Frantic, I reached for my phone, fingers trembling as I dialed 911. "Help! I'm trapped!" I whispered urgently, tears streaming down my face. Minutes felt like hours as I waited in that suffocating darkness, the fear clutching at my throat. Then, finally, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. The door was forced open, flooding the room with blinding light. I stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for air as the officers rushed past me, shouting for Dennis to come out. They found him cowering in a closet, his eyes wide with fear. It turned out he had a history of erratic behavior, and I had unknowingly walked into a dangerous situation. As they led Dennis away in handcuffs, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and fear that lingered in the air. I had trusted him, let my guard down, and paid the price. From that day on, I vowed to always listen to my instincts, to never ignore the warning signs of danger lurking beneath a friendly facade. And so, the last day of school had ended not with celebrations and farewells, but with a chilling reminder that darkness can lurk in the most unexpected of places. That's it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. Click on one of the videos for other true horror stories.